people think betrayal begins with shouting or cheating. Mine began quietly, inside a family that smiled too much and listened too little. I didn't know yet how cruel they planned to be, only that something was shifting beneath my feet. My name is Victoria. I was married to Alexander Hawthorne for 5 years. From the outside, our life looked polished, good house, respected name, invitations to expensive events. His family came from money and power, the kind that opens doors without knocking. I came from work, real work, but that difference was never spoken aloud, not openly. Alexander's sister, Zoe, was getting engaged. The engagement party was being held at one of the most expensive venues in the city. The invitation arrived addressed only to my husband. My name wasn't on it. When I asked, Alexander shrugged and said his mother must have forgotten. His tone told me not to ask again. His mother, Serafina, had never liked me. She tolerated me in public and dismissed me in private. At family dinners, she introduced me as Alexander's wife, but never by name. When her friends asked what I did, she smiled tightly and said, "Oh, she keeps busy." That was her favorite phrase, keeps busy. What she didn't know, or pretended not to, was that I ran a consulting business that fixed failing companies. What Alexander knew but never respected was that my income quietly saved his father's company 2 years earlier. They accepted the help. They never accepted me. The week before the engagement party felt strange. Alexander stayed out late, took phone calls in other rooms, and smiled at messages he never explained. When I asked if something was wrong, he said I was overthinking. That word again, overthinking. The night before the party, I was folding laundry when I heard his voice from our bedroom. He was on the phone. I wasn't trying to listen, but my name came up. Then laughter, his laughter. I froze. I stood there holding his shirts, perfectly pressed the way he demanded, and listened as my husband spoke about me like I wasn't his wife, like I wasn't even human. He talked about the party, about his mother, about putting me in my place. That was the first time I understood something important. They weren't planning a celebration. They were planning a lesson. I didn't move, I didn't interrupt, I didn't cry. I quietly put the laundry basket down and walked away before he saw me. My hands were steady, but my thoughts were sharp. Too sharp. Because while Alexander believed I was powerless, I had been paying attention for months. To his work, to his lies, to things he assumed I'd never understand. That night, I sat alone in my home office and opened a folder on my laptop. A folder I had hoped would never matter. By the time the engagement party arrived, they thought they were ready for me. They had no idea I was ready for them. I didn't sleep that night. Alexander came to bed late, smelling of cologne he never wore for me. He lay beside me like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just laughed about humiliating his own wife. I kept my eyes closed and my breathing steady. I needed him to believe I knew nothing. The next morning, he acted normal. Too normal. He kissed my forehead, drank his coffee, and reminded me what time we needed to leave for the party the next day. Not we, actually. He said you should be there by 7. He said he would arrive later. That detail stayed with me. That evening, I heard his voice again. This time, I wasn't near the bedroom. I was in the hallway, walking past his home office when his door was slightly open. I heard my name. I stopped. He was on the phone with his mother. "She needs to understand where she stands," Serafina said. Her voice was sharp, confident. "You've let this go on long enough." Alexander laughed softly. "Tomorrow we'll fix it." My chest tightened. Serafina continued, "People need to see it. Once they do, she'll stop pretending she belongs." "Pretending?" Alexander said, "I told you she'd come quietly. She always does." There was a pause, then Serafina said, "The badge is ready." I didn't understand at first. Badge. Alexander asked, "Did you separate it from the guest list?" "Of course," she replied. "No seat, no plate. Staff don't sit with family." He didn't argue, he agreed. "She'll be embarrassed," he said almost casually, "but that's the point." Serafina added, "Humiliation works better when there's an audience." My hands went cold. They weren't joking. This wasn't some cruel idea spoken in anger. This was planned, organized, paid for. Alexander said something that sealed it for me. "After this," he said, "she'll finally learn her position." Learn her position. I stepped back slowly, careful not to make a sound. My heart was racing, but my mind was calm in a way I hadn't felt in years. The confusion I'd carried for so long disappeared. Everything suddenly made sense, the dismissive looks, the jokes at my expense, the way I was always expected to shrink. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as someone who needed to be corrected. That night, I went into my office and locked the door. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I opened my laptop and stared at the folder I hadn't touched in months. Inside were documents I had collected quietly, patiently, without emotion. I had hoped I would never need them. But listening to my husband plan, my public humiliation changed something in me. Not anger, not revenge. Clarity. They thought tomorrow was about teaching me a lesson. They were wrong. Tomorrow was the day they taught me who they really were. Alexander believed I was harmless. That was his biggest mistake. While he thought I spent my days managing the house and keeping myself busy, I had been watching him carefully. Not out of suspicion at first, but habit. Numbers never lie, but people always do. And my husband had started lying badly. 6 months earlier, I noticed inconsistencies in his work files. He left documents open on his desk, financial summaries mixed with personal expenses. He assumed I wouldn't understand them. He assumed wrong. I didn't confront him. I didn't ask questions. I copied everything. At first, I told myself it was nothing serious. Then I traced the accounts. Investor money moving where it shouldn't. Expenses labeled as business costs that were clearly personal. Transfers disguised through layered transactions. Patterns that only ended one way. This wasn't carelessness. This was theft. I documented everything slowly, methodically, screenshots, statements, timelines. I encrypted the files and backed them up. Every time Alexander spoke proudly about his firm, I added another document to the folder. Every time he dismissed my work as a hobby, I added another page. The folder wasn't called revenge. It was called insurance. Marriage had trained me to be patient, to wait, to believe things would improve. I kept telling myself I'd never use it, that protecting him was part of being his wife. But listening to him laugh about my humiliation erased that promise. That night, after overhearing everything, I opened the folder again. I read through the evidence with new eyes, not emotional, focused, calm. This wasn't about hurting him. This was about stopping him. I also opened a second document. A timeline, clear, factual, no opinions, just dates, actions, and consequences. If someone reviewed it, they wouldn't need explanations. I wasn't rushing. I didn't send anything yet. Timing mattered. The engagement party was the next evening. They wanted an audience. They wanted me quiet and small. I let them believe that. The next day, Alexander barely spoke to me. He left early, said he had meetings, and reminded me again to arrive on time. Alone, his mother had arranged everything. I smiled and nodded. Inside, I was done pretending. By the time night came, I had 3 copies of the files secured in different places. I had spoken to no one. I had shown nothing. No one suspected a thing. They thought I was walking into that party unarmed. They didn't know I had already decided something important. If they humiliated me publicly, I would respond publicly. Not with words. With consequences. The day of the engagement party moved slowly, like time itself was waiting. Alexander didn't come home. He sent a short message saying he'd meet me at the venue. No explanation, no concern. I understood why. He didn't want to be seen arriving with me. Whatever they planned required distance. I got ready without rushing. I chose clothes that wouldn't draw attention. That was always expected of me. Blend in, be quiet, don't stand out. I followed the rules one last time. I arrived alone. The venue was already full when I walked in. People I recognized from past events were laughing, greeting each other, acting like nothing was unusual. I noticed how some of them paused when they saw me. Not surprise, curiosity, as if they already knew something I didn't. I approached the check-in table and gave my name. The woman behind the table hesitated. She looked down again, then to the side. Then she reached under the table and pulled out something separate from the rest. She didn't meet my eyes when she handed it to me. It was a badge. Not like the others. I looked down and read it. The word printed beneath my name wasn't guest. It wasn't family. It said housekeeper. The noise around me faded. Conversations slowed. Someone laughed uncomfortably nearby. I felt eyes on me, waiting to see what I would do. I clipped the badge on myself without saying a word. That seemed to disappoint some of them. Inside the hall, the setup was perfect. Long tables, carefully arranged seating. I scanned the table where Alexander's name was placed. There were 7 chairs. 7 plates. My place didn't exist. I stood there, still wearing the badge, still calm, while people noticed. Whispers moved faster than music. Some avoided looking at me, others watched openly. I didn't leave. I didn't react. I stood where my seat should have been and waited. That's when Alexander walked in. He looked relaxed, confident. He saw the table, the missing chair, and then he saw me standing there. He smiled. Not an apologetic smile. An amused one. "Relax," he said, reaching for his drink. "Food is for family." That sentence ended everything. I reached for my ring. I removed it slowly and placed it on the table in front of everyone. Then I said, calmly, clearly, "Then I'm no longer yours." The room went silent. Alexander stopped smiling. I turned and walked away. Behind me, voices rose, chairs scraped. Someone called my name. I didn't look back. They believed that moment was the end. They were wrong. It was only the opening move. I didn't stop walking until I was outside. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't break. I walked like someone who had already decided how the night would end. I reached my car, closed the door, and sat there for a moment without starting the engine. Inside the hall, chaos had already begun. I knew it without seeing it. People would be asking questions. Alexander would be trying to laugh it off. His mother would be furious that I hadn't reacted the way they planned. I took out my phone and made one call. The person on the other end answered immediately. "It's time," I said. There was no surprise in their voice, only confirmation. Understood. I drove home slowly. Not because I was unsure, but because timing mattered. Every step had to happen in the right order. When I reached the house, the lights were off. Alexander wasn't home. I expected that. He would be busy explaining himself to people who suddenly saw him differently. I went straight to my office and opened my laptop. The folder waited exactly where I'd left it. I didn't review the files again. I already knew them by memory. I uploaded everything to the secure portal. Each document went through without delay. Dates, numbers, proof. No emotions attached, just facts. When I finished, I closed the laptop and sat back. There was no relief, no excitement. Only certainty. My phone buzzed. "Alexander." I didn't answer. It rang again and again. Messages started coming in. "What was that about?" "You embarrassed me." "Call me now." I ignored them all. An hour later, the messages changed. "Something is wrong. My accounts aren't loading. Did you do something?" I stared at the screen and said nothing. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I woke to silence. No messages, no calls. That silence told me everything was moving exactly as planned. By noon, the first headline appeared online. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just a quiet notice about an investigation. Alexander would see it soon if he hadn't already. When he finally came home that evening, his face was pale. His confidence was gone. He looked at me like I was a stranger. "What did you do?" he asked. I met his eyes calmly. "Nothing," I said. "I just stopped protecting you." He opened his mouth to speak, but his phone rang before he could say another word. This time, he answered. I watched his expression change as he listened. Shock, fear, then something close to panic. He ended the call and looked at me again. "This isn't over," he said. I nodded. "You're right," I replied. "It's just beginning." Alexander didn't sleep that night. I knew because he never stopped pacing. He walked from room to room, checking his phone, refreshing emails, making calls that went unanswered. By morning, he looked like someone who already knew the ending but was still hoping for a miracle. At 8:17 a.m., his first meeting was canceled. At 8:42, his assistant stopped replying. At 9:05, his partner called. I was in the kitchen when I heard his voice change. The confident tone he used with everyone else was gone. He sounded careful now, measured. Yes, I understand. No, I didn't receive anything formal yet. A pause. That can't be right. Another pause, longer this time. He lowered his voice, but not enough. There must be some mistake. When he ended the call, he stood still for several seconds, staring at nothing. Then he looked at me. What did you send? He asked. Only what already existed, I replied. He stepped closer. You don't understand how serious this is. I understand exactly, I said. That afternoon, his firm locked him out of internal systems. His access badge stopped working. His calendar disappeared. His name was removed from ongoing deals. By evening, the calls returned, not from colleagues, from lawyers. He stopped speaking to me entirely. Fear replaced anger. He wasn't thinking about the party anymore, or the badge, or the chair. He was thinking about survival. The next day, his mother called. I heard her shouting through the phone from across the room. She demanded explanations. She demanded solutions. She demanded that Alexander fix it. He couldn't. By the third day, rumors spread fast. Quiet conversations, canceled lunches, invitations withdrawn. People who once praised him now avoided him. At night, he finally spoke. Withdraw it, he said. Whatever you filed, I'll apologize. My mother will apologize. I looked at him. You plan my humiliation, I said. This isn't negotiable. His voice dropped. You're destroying me. No, I replied. You did that yourself. That was when he realized something worse than investigation or loss. He had no control left. And the people he trusted most were about to disappear. The first person to abandon Alexander was not a colleague. It was his mother. She came to the house unannounced on the fourth day. Her voice was sharp, controlled, but fear was underneath it. She didn't look at me when she entered. She went straight to her son. What did you do? She asked him. Alexander didn't answer immediately. He looked tired, cornered. She did this, he said finally, pointing at me. She reported it. Serafina turned toward me then. Her eyes were cold but not confident. You had no right. I had every right, I said. She laughed once, short and hollow. You think this ends well for you? Before I could respond, her phone rang. She answered it instantly. The color drained from her face as she listened. She turned away, pacing, whispering. I caught fragments, accounts, freezes, questions. When she hung up, her posture changed. This cannot reach me, she said to Alexander. Do you understand? Whatever you've done cannot touch my name. He stared at her. I need help. She shook her head. You need a lawyer, a good one. I can't be involved. That was it. No comfort, no support, no family loyalty. She left without another word. That night, Alexander finally broke. He sat across from me and said, I protected you. I almost laughed. You protected yourself, I replied. The next morning, his firm issued a formal statement. He was placed on leave pending investigation. His authority was suspended. His access permanently revoked. By afternoon, another call came. This time from his sister. Zoe. She sounded shaken. What's happening? She asked me quietly. Ask your brother, I said. There was a pause, then she whispered, he won't answer. That was when I understood something important. The humiliation they planned for me was small compared to what was coming for him. Because when powerful people fall, they fall alone. And Alexander was falling fast. Zoe came the next evening. She didn't call first, she didn't announce herself. I opened the door and saw her standing there, eyes red, hands shaking slightly. I need to talk to you, she said. I stepped aside and let her in. She sat across from me and spoke quickly, like she was afraid she'd lose courage if she slowed down. Something is wrong with Daniel, with his company. People are asking questions, investors are nervous. I stayed quiet. She swallowed. Alexander told me you're trying to destroy him. I looked at her calmly. Is that what you believe? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. He wants to marry me fast, she continued. Next month, he says we shouldn't wait. And that scares you, I said. She nodded. I asked to see his financials. He got angry, said I didn't trust him. I leaned forward slightly. Zoe, listen carefully. If you marry him now, your money becomes his shield. Her eyes widened. I don't understand. You don't have to, I said, but you need to leave. She went silent. I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward her. Not everything, just enough. Numbers, patterns, gaps. Her breath caught. This can't be real. It is, I replied, and it's worse than you think. She stared at the screen, then looked up at me. Why are you helping me? I didn't hesitate, because you never laughed at me. That broke her. She covered her face and cried quietly. When she looked up again, her voice was steadier. What do I do? You wait, I said, and you don't marry him. She nodded slowly. 2 days later, her engagement was quietly called off. No announcement, no explanation. Daniel stopped answering calls. And Zoe stopped answering everyone. That same night, Alexander realized something else was happening. He accused me of turning his sister against him. I didn't deny it. You're ruining my family, he said. I looked at him. You ruined it the moment you laughed. That was when he understood this wasn't just about him anymore. This was spreading. And there was nothing he could do to stop it. The day Zoe ended her engagement, Alexander lost control. He stormed into the house that night, phone in hand, voice already raised. What did you tell her? He demanded. I told her the truth, I said. He laughed bitterly. You poison everyone and call it truth. His phone rang again before I could answer. He looked at the screen and froze. He stepped away to take the call, but his voice carried. Yes, I understand. No, I can't access those accounts. Silence. Then louder, you're freezing everything. When he ended the call, his hands were shaking. They're auditing past transactions, he said, more to himself than to me. They're going back years. I said nothing. That night, his partners removed his name from the firm's website. His profile disappeared like it had never existed. The man who once controlled meetings and money was erased with a few clicks. By morning, his mother's world started collapsing too. Her bank called, then her lawyer, then another lawyer. She arrived again, but this time she didn't shout. She pleaded. You have no idea what you've started, she told me. This can reach places it shouldn't. I met her gaze. It already has. Her voice dropped. If my finances are exposed, I lose everything. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes, real fear. She turned to Alexander. Fix this. He whispered, I can't. That was the moment she realized her son was finished. She left without saying goodbye. By evening, the rumors became public. Articles appeared online, not dramatic, just facts, investigations, suspensions, questions without answers. Alexander stopped leaving the house. At midnight, he finally spoke again. If I lose everything, he said, you lose everything with me. I looked at him calmly. I built mine myself. The next morning, his firm announced full cooperation with authorities. That meant one thing. They were preparing to sacrifice him. And Alexander, finally, understood the position he was in. Alone, exposed, and trapped by his own choices, Alexander didn't come home the next day. By evening, messages started arriving from numbers I didn't recognize. Lawyers, former colleagues. One short message stood out. He's not okay. It was from someone who had once praised him publicly. Near midnight, there was a knock at the door. I didn't open it. I checked the camera instead. Alexander stood outside. His jacket was wrinkled. His confidence was gone. He looked smaller, like someone who had been carrying a name that no longer belonged to him. Victoria, he said loudly, I know you're inside. I didn't respond. I need to talk to you, he continued. This has gone too far. I watched silently. He lowered his voice. I'll do anything, I'll apologize, I'll tell everyone it was my fault. That almost made me smile. You plan to humiliate me in front of everyone, I said through the door. This is the result. He stepped closer. It was my mother's idea. I stayed quiet. She pushed it, he added quickly. I didn't think you'd react like this. I finally spoke. You laughed. There was silence. Then his voice cracked. Please. That was the first time I'd ever heard that word from him. I'm being investigated, he said. They're talking about charges. I could lose everything. You already did, I replied. He slid down and sat on the step outside. If this continues, he said, there's no coming back. I looked at him through the camera. The man who once believed I would always stay quiet was begging for protection he no longer deserved. You taught me my position, I said calmly. Now you're learning yours. He stood up suddenly, anger flashing. You think you've won. No, I said. I think you finally understand. He left shortly after. I watched him walk away without looking back. The next morning, his firm released another statement. This one used words like misconduct and cooperation. By afternoon, his lawyer called to inform him his personal accounts were frozen. By night, he sent one final message. I never thought you were capable of this. I read it once and deleted it. Because he was right. He never did. By the end of the week, Alexander's name stopped opening doors. People who once returned his calls within minutes now didn't respond at all. Meetings were canceled without explanation. Invitations disappeared. His phone stayed silent for hours at a time. That silence was louder than any accusation. Friday morning, he received the email. I saw his face change as he read it, slowly, carefully, like someone reading their own sentence. They're terminating my partnership, he said. His voice was flat, effective immediately. I didn't answer. They're claiming breach of trust, he continued. They're saying I acted alone. Of course they were. Powerful organizations don't protect fallen men, they remove them. By noon, his firm issued a final update. His name was removed from all materials. Past press releases were edited, photos cropped. It was as if he had never existed there at all. Alexander tried calling his friends. One didn't answer. Another said he was busy. A third told him it would be better if they didn't speak for a while. That afternoon, his lawyer arrived. I stayed in the other room, but I heard enough. Words like federal, exposure, evidence, penalties. Long pauses followed by quiet swearing. When the lawyer left, Alexander sat alone for a long time. They're building a case, he finally said, not just against me. I looked at him. Who else? My mother, he replied quietly. That was new. She moved money years ago, he continued. Accounts she never declared. If they trace it, she's finished. For the first time, he looked afraid for someone else. That evening, Serafina called again. This time, she didn't shout. Her voice was controlled but strained. You need to withdraw whatever you filed. I can't, I said. You will destroy this family, she replied. I answered calmly. You destroyed it the moment you decided I didn't belong. She hung up without another word. The next day, a notice appeared in a financial journal. Just a paragraph, no names in the headline, but everyone knew. An elite family under investigation. Alexander read it twice, then sat back. They've started distancing themselves, he said, even from her. That was when it hit him. The people who taught him power had abandoned him. And the woman he tried to humiliate was the only one still standing. Serafina didn't call for 2 days. That silence was deliberate. She was calculating, looking for leverage. She believed there was still a way out. On the third day, she appeared at the house again. This time, she came alone. She didn't sit. She stood across from me and spoke carefully, like every word was being weighed. I know you're smart, she said. Smart people don't burn everything down. I met her eyes. Smart people don't humiliate others to feel powerful. Her jaw tightened. You think this investigation stops with my son? I know it won't, I replied. That was when she understood something had already escaped her control. My accounts are under review, she admitted. Someone reopened my divorce settlement. I stayed silent. They're asking questions about offshore transfers, she continued. Old ones. I nodded once. They will. Her voice sharpened. If my reputation collapses, yours will follow. People will turn on you. They already tried, I said. It didn't work. She stared at me, searching for weakness. She found none. That afternoon, her name was removed from 2 charity boards. Quietly, no announcement, just polite emails thanking her for her service. By evening, her credit card declined. She called Alexander in panic. He didn't answer. That night, I received a message from an unknown number. They froze my accounts. I need to talk. It was from her. I didn't reply. The next morning, a notice arrived at the house. Legal, official, addressed to her. Alexander read it first. They're auditing her finances, he said. Tylettery 22, Tylettery 2D, Tylettery 19, Tylettery 2B, Tylettery 25, Tylettery 31, Tylettery 07. Years back. His voice dropped. She hid money. Yes, I replied, she did. That was the moment his loyalty shifted. Not toward me. Away from her. She ruined us, he whispered. I looked at him. You learned from her. By the end of the week, Serafina stopped attending events. She stopped posting. She stopped appearing. People whispered. The woman who once decided, who belonged, was suddenly nowhere to be seen. And for the first time, she was the one without a place at the table. On Monday morning, Alexander received an email that made him sit down. It was from the firm's legal team. They wanted a meeting, not to help him, to separate from him completely. They're offering a deal, he said quietly. If I cooperate, they'll say I acted alone. I looked at him, and if you don't, they'll bury me. That was the choice. Protect himself by destroying what little remained of his family, or stay silent and face everything alone. He didn't ask for my opinion. He already knew what he would do. By afternoon, he signed. He gave them everything. Emails, access, names, dates. He spoke for hours. When he returned home, his face was empty. I told them about my mother, he said. I nodded. They already knew. That night, Serafina called him nonstop. He didn't answer. The next day, she showed up somewhere she had never been before. At my office. The receptionist buzzed me. There's a woman here asking for you. She says it's urgent. I told her to let her in. Serafina walked in slowly, like someone entering unfamiliar ground. She didn't sit. She didn't smile. They're coming for me, she said. Your husband gave them everything. He's no longer my husband, I replied. Her voice tightened. I can make this stop. I waited. I have connections, she continued. Influential ones. If you withdraw your cooperation, this can all quiet down. I looked at her. You still think this is about influence? She stepped closer. Name your price. That was the moment I saw her clearly. Not powerful, not respected. Desperate. I don't want your money, I said. I want distance. Her expression hardened. You'll regret this. I already survived you, I replied. She left without another word. 2 hours later, news broke quietly. Another investigation, another audit. Her name appeared for the first time. Not as a leader. As a subject. That evening, Zoe called me. They questioned my trust fund, she said softly. They're tracing everything connected to Mom. I closed my eyes briefly. You'll be fine. I know, she said, because I never touched it. There was a pause. Thank you, she added, for telling me the truth when no one else would. After the call ended, I stood alone and understood something important. Alexander had fallen. Serafina was falling. And the family that once believed itself untouchable was collapsing from the inside. Quietly. Illegally. Completely, Alexander was arrested on a Thursday morning. Not dramatically, no shouting, no crowd. 2 officials arrived, spoke quietly, and escorted him out. By the time the news reached social circles, it was already done. His phone was returned to me that evening. Evidence sealed. Access removed. The last message on the screen was unsent. I can fix this. He couldn't. By nightfall, his lawyer called me. They're filing multiple charges, he said. Financial misconduct, fraud, obstruction. I listened without emotion. He's asking to speak to you. No, I replied. That same night, Serafina's world finally collapsed. Her assets were frozen. her accounts locked, her name removed from every board she once controlled. The woman who decided who mattered was now answering questions she couldn't escape. She called me once. I let it ring. The next day, Zoe came to see me. They questioned me for hours, she said. About money, about Mom, about Alex. And, I asked. I told them everything, she said. I didn't protect anyone. I nodded. You were right, she added. Truth is the only thing that survives. By the weekend, headlines appeared. Not loud, not emotional, just facts. A respected firm, a fallen partner, a powerful family under scrutiny. People who once avoided eye contact now messaged me quietly. We didn't know. You didn't deserve that. I ignored most of them. Alexander was denied bail. That night, I stood alone in the house that once belonged to both of us. Nothing felt heavy anymore. The silence wasn't empty. It was final. The man who laughed while I stood without a chair had lost every seat he ever had. And there was nothing left for him to take from me. Only consequences waiting where power once stood. 1 week after Alexander's arrest, I received a call I didn't expect. The venue. The same place where the engagement party had been held. The manager spoke carefully. We're facing serious financial trouble, he said. Our primary investors pulled out. We're looking for a buyer. I almost laughed. How much? I asked. When he told me the number, I didn't hesitate. Send the documents. 2 days later, I signed. Quietly. No announcement, no press, no celebration. The building where I was labeled housekeeper now belonged to me. No one there knew it yet. That afternoon, Serafina tried to host one last charity event. She arrived to finalize arrangements and was stopped at the entrance. Her booking had been canceled, refund issued, contract voided. She demanded explanations. She was told the new ownership had changed policies. She asked who the owner was. No one answered. That night, she sent me a message. Is this you? I didn't reply. The following week, staff rules were updated. No titles, no hierarchy, no humiliation disguised as tradition. Everyone seated, everyone served. Meanwhile, Serafina's life continued shrinking. Her home was seized, her car repossessed, her accounts inaccessible. The people who once followed her stopped calling. She applied for work under a different name. No one recognized her. Alexander remained silent in custody. His lawyers stopped calling. His defense funds ran out. One afternoon, I received a letter. Handwritten. From him. He wrote about regret, about misunderstanding, about how he never thought I would fight back. He asked for forgiveness. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. That night, I walked through the venue alone. Every chair was in place. Every table complete. No space left empty for humiliation. The room was quiet but not cold. It was finished. They taught me my position. I just chose a better one. No one knew I owned the venue. That was intentional. The staff continued their routines. Events continued as scheduled. The only difference was the policy update sent quietly to every coordinator and manager. No special badges. No selective seating. No exceptions. The first test came quickly. Serafina tried to rebook. She used an assistant, a different email, a different tone. The request was marked urgent, important guests, important donors. The response was polite and final. Declined. She called the manager directly, raised her voice, dropped names that once worked like currency. They didn't work anymore. That same day, another event took place. A small one, not wealthy, not powerful. Everyone was seated. Everyone was served. No hierarchy, no whispers. People noticed. By the end of the week, word spread that the venue felt different, safer, fairer. No one could explain why. Meanwhile, Alexander's case moved forward. His lawyer sent a message asking if I would testify voluntarily. I agreed. Not out of anger. Out of precision. Zoe called me that night. They offered me immunity, she said, for cooperating. You did the right thing, I replied. I know, she said. Mom doesn't see it that way. Serafina stopped calling Zoe after that. She stopped calling everyone. Another week passed. A short article appeared online. It wasn't about the case, it was about the venue, new ownership, new policies, quiet praise. Serafina saw it. She came in person. She stood in the lobby, looking around like she'd lost her way. The receptionist didn't recognize her, asked how she could help. Serafina said she was looking for the owner. The receptionist smiled. She's not available. Who is she? Serafina asked sharply. The receptionist answered calmly. Someone who believes everyone deserves a seat. Serafina left without another word. That night, Alexander's attorney sent a final update. Trial date set. Evidence overwhelming. Plea deal rejected. I closed my laptop and looked at the calendar. Everything was moving exactly as it should. They thought humiliation was power. They never learned what control actually looked like. Serafina disappeared from society without a headline. No farewell, no scandal photos, just absence. Her name stopped appearing on guest lists. Her voice stopped carrying weight. When people spoke about her, they did so in the past tense, quietly, like discussing someone who no longer mattered. I heard about her through others. She sold her jewelry first, then furniture, then the last property still under her name, each sale smaller than the one before, each step taken without the confidence she once weaponized. One afternoon, a mutual contact called me. She's working now, they said. Front desk, small office, different last name. I didn't ask where. That same week, Alexander was formally charged. The list was long, numbers attached, years mentioned. His face appeared once in the news, no sympathy followed. Zoe visited me that evening. I saw him, she said quietly, in court. And, I asked. He didn't look at me, she replied. I don't think he can. She paused. Mom didn't come. That said more than anything else. The next morning, I received confirmation that the venue's rebranding was complete. New contracts, new values, old habits erased. That afternoon, Serafina tried one last time. She sent a message. I never meant to hurt you. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I deleted it. Because intent had never been the issue. The impact had been. By the end of the month, Alexander's legal team stopped fighting. Negotiations began, terms discussed, time calculated. He accepted a plea. When Zoe told me, her voice didn't shake. It's over, she said. Yes, I replied, it is. The family that once decided who belonged had lost every place they controlled. Not through revenge. Through exposure. And there was nothing left for them to hide behind. A year passed. Not quietly for everyone. Alexander was sentenced. The number of years was enough to end any future he once imagined. His appeal was denied before it even gained attention. The system moved on without caring who he used to be. Serafina never appeared in court. Her matters were handled privately. Penalties, settlements, silence, the kind that follows people who lose relevance. Zoe moved away. She changed her number, changed her plans. She didn't run, she chose distance. When she called me months later, her voice was steady. I'm starting over, she said, without the name. I told her she didn't need it. My life didn't slow down. The venue thrived. Events filled the calendar. People talked about how it felt different, though they couldn't explain why. They only knew they were treated equally. I never told anyone the story. They didn't need it. One afternoon, I attended an event there as a guest for the first time. I stood near the back and watched, every chair filled. Every table complete, no empty spaces, no hierarchy. No one recognized me. That felt right. Later that night, I received a message from an unknown number. I see what you built. I didn't reply. Because the truth didn't need acknowledgement. The people who once tried to erase me had erased themselves. And the place where I was once humiliated had become something they would never enter again. Not because they were banned. Because they no longer mattered. Everything had returned to balance. Just not in their favor. I went back on the anniversary. Not announced, not invited, just present. The venue was full that night, a private event, different faces, different names. None of them knew what had happened there a year earlier. None of them needed to. I walked in without a badge. No one stopped me. No one questioned where I belonged. I watched people take their seats, every chair occupied. No gaps, no exclusions. The system worked quietly, the way justice often does when it's done right. Someone stood to speak, applause followed. Laughter moved through the room, not nervous, not forced. Natural. A year ago, this same space had been used to strip me of dignity. Now it gave it freely. I stood near the back and felt nothing sharp. No anger, no satisfaction, just completion. Halfway through the event, someone approached me. "You look familiar," she said. I smiled slightly. "Maybe." She nodded, uncertain, then walked away. That was enough. Later that night, I received a notification. Alexander's transfer request had been denied. He would serve his full sentence. No exceptions. I closed the message and slipped my phone into my pocket. Outside, the city moved on. Cars passed. Lights changed. Life continued without pause for fallen names or broken families. Before leaving, I looked back once more at the room. The tables were full. The chairs were even. Nothing was missing. That was when I understood the final truth. They thought they were teaching me a lesson. Instead, they gave me a place I built myself. And I never needed their table again. You have reached the end of the text.